Pastor Dino, how we doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Vance. How are you?
I like that chandelier.
I'm at my house, man. We got a little dining room action going, so I had to bump it up since I was talking to you, Vance.
Oh, I love it. It's good to see you. How you doing?
See you. Doing well, doing well. I had a good couple days, and it's great to see you and your wife at the art conference,
Yeah.
and get to meet some of the team there. And for those of you that don't know Vance, he and his wife, y'all live exactly what city?
San Jose, right in the Bay
That's
Area.
that's right. And your wife's name is Kim.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. For
four
10
kids.
years, four kids, four
Yeah,
kids.
that's intense. And so, live in that area. You started a company, really really just a tool, a
Yeah,
partner, a resource. How many years ago? Called Overflow. How many years
that's right.
ago did you start that?
Yeah, so I started Overflow in the midst of the pandemic. Overflow is a product of the pandemic, July 2020.
Yeah, yeah, that's for real. That's for real. Well, I know a lot of people are jumping on, and I'm excited about us having a conversation about generosity and about giving and about helping others, because I believe that's so much of what is important in what we do. And so making a difference, helping people, reaching people, doing all we can to help others, to resource the kingdom of God is always super important. And so tell me a little bit about your heart for generosity, where this idea to come up, this platform, this resource tool to help other people make a difference.
Well, Pasadena, I mean, you model it so well. ARC models it so well. A big part of what we do is we serve the local church. So, Overflow, we equip churches, nonprofits, corporations, the whole gamut, but we have a big heart for the local church. And what we've been encouraged by is organizations like ARC in the midst of the pandemic, through the pandemic, post pandemic, still planting churches, still helping people, still reaching people. But you know how it is. I mean, you've done this for so many years now. You've seen so many church plants. One of the most critical things for a church plant is resources,
Yeah.
is finances,
Yeah.
right? It's the ability to be able to raise up kingdom builders and those that have a gift for giving, right? The Bible talks about spiritual gifts. And actually, one of those gifts is generosity.
Yep.
And so really we are founded on a biblical principle, Proverbs 11:24. It says the world of the generous gets larger and larger. And so when I was meditating on that verse, I realized that okay, God has created us to give, but if we contextualize that in today's age, right? It means not just giving from cash or check or even online debit credit giving nowadays. You got to be so much more expansive in allowing people to give where they actually have wealth, where they
Yeah.
actually have an opportunity to be generous. And it's interesting because when we talked about this early days, you mentioned to me that in your church building days, you actually saw this very early on. People wanting to give things like land, people wanting to give things like real estate assets. Maybe you can
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that because you've been an early believer in Overflow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, God called us to, I mean, whether what we're doing here in Highlands or what we were doing in Baton Rouge. Hey, hold on, my refrigerator's open. You can hear it beeping. Everybody on live IG. This is real live stuff going on here. We about to shut my refrigerator.
Let's go. I love it. That's important. You gotta make sure the fridge is all good. But yeah, so before Pastor Dino gets back on, what we were talking about was really Overflow today is focused on all those other channels of generosity. Stock, crypto is primarily where we play right now. But I've been inspired recently in conversations with Pastor Dino because he's expanding my mindset on in the South and the church building you all have done for years. People get creative about what they want to give.
Yep. Well, and that was what we saw. People want to make a difference. We're building a facility, opening up a dream center, feeding people, working with children. trying to partner in our community. And you had different people, their assets and their heart was in other places. And so we would be able to kind of halfway service that, but it would take a long time. We were having to reach to try to figure it out, which delayed, which complicated, and we just weren't efficient. Passing buckets around was efficient. Well, it's like, you've got to get efficient in online giving. You got to get efficient in text to give. Whether you're whatever type of nonprofit, whatever type of entity you are, thank God for generous people. And so we ran into those limitations. And I guess what you shared with me, because, there's so many giving opportunities were so limited.
Yeah.
And you guys have taken that off and you've really made it, unlimited what you could do when the church wants to pursue all these new avenues of outreach and building buildings and open up campus.
Exactly. Talk to us, Pastor Dino, a little bit about the state of the local church right now. I actually was on a call with a pastor recently, and he had mixed feelings, right? There's a lot of reports out there saying, hey, people are departing the church. There's a lot of studies, right? But when I went to ARC conference, I saw something very different. I saw a lot of courageous leaders building like I've never seen people build before. Well, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, these are crazy days. There's a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of hurt. Inflation, gas prices, the tragedies we've seen in Buffalo, what we see in Ukraine, what we've seen in Uvalde, in Texas. It's on and on. And so, you see these things take place. And if you're not careful, fear can jump on you, and lack
Mm,
and uncertainty. And when fear and lack and uncertainty jump on your life, it closes you up. But you've got to keep faith filled. So I'm encouraging
mm.
leader, anybody who's serving God right now, stay full of faith. Man, stay full of faith. And if you stay full of faith, then the joy of the Lord is your strength. And because the enemy always wants to get our joy, because then he can get our strength. We have no strength to fight. We have no strength to stand. We have no strength to give. We have no
Mm,
strength to make a difference. We have no strength to tend to our marriage, help our kids, help our neighbor, serve at our local church. And so I'm just encouraging people to stay faith filled and not let fear jump on them right now. And
mm.
so we got to, you got one of the comments was stay full of faith. Amen. Stay full of faith. And that's giving, that's serving, that's caring. And, being around you, Vance, you're a faith-filled person. You've seen that at the local church that you serve at. You've seen that in starting up a company. And now you get to talk to so many churches that are utilizing all these different ways to be a part, which, I think is great. One of the first things I asked you, I said, and I know we're interviewing each other, but one of the first things I asked you, I said, okay, tell me what Overflow does.
Mhm.
Simple.
Yeah.
Answer that, because we want to say, okay, we want to know what this platform is and this resource.
Yeah. So Overflow simply is an online giving platform that allows your church to accept stock, crypto, 401ks, IRAs, pretty much any non-cash asset, right? We make it super easy. And just recently, actually, Pastor Dino, and you've learned this recently as well, we just enabled lowest fee cash processing on Overflow as well. And so
Wow.
because of the work we've been able to do in the non-cash space and some of the partnerships we've been able to make in our world, we now offer as well, in addition to the non-cash assets and making that very, very simple, if churches want to also save cost and fees, right now the current giving providers, they're charging anywhere between 3 and 4%, right? That's on the low
It's a lot.
side, 3 or 4% off the top off the giving because they need to make a margin on those cash processing.
Sure.
We get it under 2% blended, right? We can save over a percent at least for churches in their cash processing. And so our vision is to provide net new giving opportunities in the form of non-cash stocks and crypto and all of those assets, net new giving opportunities, but also net new savings opportunities, ultimately maximum resources for kingdom building.
Man, that's when I'm sitting here thinking of impact. I'm thinking of lives. I'm thinking of ideas. If I'm leading a college group, if I'm on a church team, if I'm leading trying to help feed kids, if I'm trying to, doing everything we can to, again, expand a campus, to get a vehicle so that we can go into a community and help those that have reduced opportunities, or just build a new space. It would be amazing if we could. I mean, just think about that. That percentage times a lot of churches, times a lot of giving, times a lot of generosity, and that ultimately equates what I believe to impacting eternity.
That's right. And you know what's so cool is it's not just working for big churches, mega churches. It's
Exactly.
been working for church plants, actually ARC churches, which has been really, really cool. We shared this at our conference, a couple ARC churches, one up in Seattle, Hope Village Church. Pastor Drew and Emma Davies, just crushing it up there in the suburbs of Seattle. They onboarded and have seen massive success. But most recently as well, another ARC church, Oceans Church, with Pastor Mark Francie
Yep.
over there in Southern California. They actually just recently bought a building. And a lot of the generosity that was facilitated in these past few weeks, literally in weeks, was through stock and crypto donations. Praise God that he
Yeah.
provided a way for this building.
Yeah. I can remember when online giving started, and I remember having the doubters. You're like, well, I'm not, and boy, that's changed. And then, and I remember when we did text to give, and people were like, well, man, that's, I don't know, but man, so many different entities now, food banks and, after school programs for, kids trying to help them with live. It's like everybody is doing an online opportunity if they're researching cancer, whatever it may be, and now text to give. So often when I want to tithe or give, a lot of times I'll just text it because
Yeah,
now trust it. Now it's normal. And you just believe that these spaces are opening up, and there's been some new ways to unlock generosity. And it's gonna, like the other opportunities have transformed the local church. You just believe something like this is going to do the same thing, Vance.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. Like we progressed from the buckets, right, back in the day. And some of us are still doing the buckets. Some,
Sure.
especially the older generation, prefer to give in that way. But we progressed largely from that to online giving, what you're saying, the convenience of not even just like the online part, but making it automated, automating your obedience. That's what we say
That's right.
at our church, that people have the revelation of the tithe, that they would just, hey, you don't have to make 12 decisions a year. You can make one decision for the year and honor God with that. But to your point, it took some time for that to be normalized, but the way in which technology is progressing and permeating every single part of our life, people buy things on Amazon, people transfer money through Venmo and Cash App, right? People are Googling everything, people are connecting through social media because that has conditioned us what is expected now, not even things that we need to do as a church. What is expected by our members is to provide opportunities that make it secure, safe,
Yeah.
simple, right? And if you can do that in ways that also tap into places that can save them on taxes, but also provide them more opportunities to be generous, then you have a win-win situation. And that's what we've been able to see. Not only unlocking generosity, but serving the members by education and empowerment. And because they want to give, that's how they're wired, that's how they're preconditioned. There's so much joy on the other side of being able to give more generously than you thought you couldn't before, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because I mean, you want to You want to make a difference. You want your giving to turn into eternal kingdom impact. You want to reach people for the cause of Jesus Christ. I mean, that's what we talk about. That's what we do. And so, I believe it. I love helping resource people with things that'll help them. I
Yeah,
like helping people. Somebody writes a book. If the book helps somebody, great. Somebody writes
come
a
on.
small curriculum. Well, let's do this because it's going to help a family. It's going to help give someone hope. I'm a firm believer in talking about things that help people. And so that's why
Mm,
I love, I'm glad we were able to jump on this live call, this live IG, so that it's because I believe it helps people. It'll help a church. It'll help an individual. It'll help a businessman and woman, maybe a startup. I mean, it's already helped churches that are startups.
yeah,
I mean, that blows my mind that people are already like, man, I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, man, this is already working for us. He's not
wow.
even launched a church yet.
Wow.
That's
Praise
fabulous.
God.
That's fabulous. And so
Mm,
people find out about this resource or to find out more, really because of the whole software and the generosity you guys are all about.
absolutely. Yeah, really easy. You can go to overflow.co, overflow.co. And on there has all the information. It has a detailed breakdown of what we're able to do to serve the local church. In addition to that, there's a really clear call to action button there where you can book a demo, and one of our team will literally respond within the day to set up a meeting so that it can show you exactly how everything works and how it would be integrated into the church. But it's super simple. It's literally two lines of code that you put on your website, similar to how you've executed other things. And
Sure.
once you have that button on your website, you're off to the races. You're good to go, and you can start encouraging people that hey, you don't have to be limited in the types of things that you give. You can now have access to give from a lot of different means.
Yeah. So it's overflow dot.
Co, co.
See, so that's like a new thing now. .co.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
I'm learning things incredible. I'm just learning amazing things as we sit on this call. Before we get off, give me a quick little story of like, man, had this conversation of, you know, the other day with a pastor. This is working. I had this happen a year ago, 6 months. Is there a story that man's just like, wow, that's why we do what we do?
Oh, absolutely. So I was talking to a church the other day. They're actually up in San Francisco. They're one of the fastest growing churches actually in San Francisco. And you know this, Pastor Dino, San Francisco is no joke.
Oh no,
It's
man,
no
the
joke.
real
And
deal.
so yeah, and so they've been grinding and building and staying full of faith. But one thing that was interesting is that they don't put kind of giving at the forefront too much. It's just not in their culture,
Sure.
right? But one thing that was cool is that Overflow for them seemed like a really easy way to encourage their
Yeah.
congregation to participate because they had just bought a building, and so they're raising millions of dollars to make sure that they can service the building and build out the building how they need. I think it actually was $18 million in 3 years that they're
Big
going
faith.
for. Yeah. And so that's big faith. They were faith filled, but then faith, is meeting the wisdom and the practicality of what he's put in our hand. And so they felt like you said it earlier, like Overflow was a tool that wasn't just trying to ask from their congregation, but more invite their congregation to participate in this new way.
Yeah.
And they literally just put an email out. They just put an email out and they have seen, I think, to date, over $500,000 come through in
Wow.
just mainly stock donation,
Yeah.
which is incredible. And it's helping them fulfill their goals for their capital campaign. I say that because the most impactful part to me wasn't even just the outcome of what they've been able to receive through Overflow. The pastor there, the executive pastor there, told me specifically that he's been specifically impacted by our level of service and concierge. He goes, concierge level support. And I thought that was just beautiful
Yeah.
language. I was really blessed by that
Yeah.
because, oftentimes, especially in the church space, when you work with a vendor or a technology provider, it can feel really transactional, right? And it can feel very not relational. And what's so interesting is that's so opposed to how the kingdom of God actually works, right? And so it's always been my heart to put in kingdom principles and not to facilitate relationships like transactions, but relationships like, hey, we're going to be doing this for a long time together because we are trying to help the Big C church win all together. And so that was one thing.
Yeah.
He didn't even point to, he shared with me the outcome, but the thing he wanted to give me feedback on specifically is the level of service and care that our team was able to provide him because we come like I come from that background. I served as executive pastor at my local church. And so I get it. Like I understand and we have deep empathy for those people.
Yeah. Well, it comes out of your heart. People matter, and they
Mhm.
should be valued and cherished. And we ought to be thankful to be a part of anything. I just saw one of my favorite guys on the planet on here, Kyle Turner,
Yeah.
and it's what he does in Kansas City. I mean, he's
Come on.
leading a great church, but he lives every day to give out groceries and to give out food. I mean, to give out
Wow.
a amazing amount of food for a church in a community, and it's accomplishing what people need. I mean, you
Yeah.
love what Pastor Chris Hodges says. My pastor, hey, find a need and meet a need. I mean,
That's it.
that's living out. That's a serve day. It's a witness, and I think you've done a great job, and we're both trying to do it more and more with what we do to find a need and to meet a need. And so that's what we're about. That's what Overflow is about. I know that's what ARC is about, or Church of the Highlands, or all the other great churches that are represented here. And so, man, anything else before we jump off?
Pastor Dina, I wanted to ask you a question before we jumped
Okay.
off.
Okay.
You alluded to it earlier, faith, keeping the spirit of joy. One thing that I hear often, especially in these times, is how do I cast vision, right? When we talk about unlocking generosity, what we understand is that people give to vision. What would you say are just a couple keys that you've learned over the past years, decades, in terms of what's really important when you communicate vision to unlock generosity?
Well, I mean, it's got to be in you. Out of nothing comes nothing. Out of something comes something. So it's got to be in you. You've got to, you've got to value that. You got to unlock that in your own life. I don't want to hear a generosity sermon from a selfish person. I'm not going. That ain't my jam, man. And I like being around generous people. I think what Mother Teresa said. You're never more like God than when you give. I
Wow.
mean, it's 16. We could go hours on that. And so it's got to be in you. And I think you've got to stay in love with humanity, broken, hurting, real humanity. I think if you stay with humanity and if you're in the trenches with people that are going through things that are suffering and struggling, it's going to move you. It's going to move you to compassion. It's going to move you to vision. One of the, Jesus was, he's doing it. All of a sudden, the disciples weren't there. They were there. And I remember, I'll never forget, he said, look, 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 the harvest is plenteous. We weren't talking about corn or he wasn't talking about wheat. They were people. And he was trying to get his disciples to say, look at the people.
Mm,
The harvest is ripe. Let's go labor. Let's go get after it. And so it's got to be in you. You've got to see it. And I
yeah.
think you want to tell the story. I think great communicators, we got some, and you're connected with some great communicators. I know y'all do a lot with Elevation Church. I mean, gosh, Stephen Furtick is a great, he's just the real deal. We could list so many names. My pastor, Chris Hodges, John Siebling, there's
Yeah.
so many. I mean, these Herbert Cooper, these guys tell compelling stories. And what do? They tell compelling stories because
Wow.
they're with the people. And because I think most people at the end of the day, they want to help somebody. They want to make a difference. They know that even though they may be struggling, even though they may not have everything they need, most of the time you have an awareness that there are people less fortunate than you.
Yes.
I need to respond because there are in some of our worst days, there are still people less fortunate than us.
Yeah.
And so I think people want to do that if they can find a place of integrity, a trusted leader, and people do what they say they're going to do with the resources, and that is to help others.
I,
And there are great churches that do that every single day, and you get
I
to
love
see them, and so that's my thoughts.
that is so powerful. It has to be in you. I
Yeah.
don't that stuck out to me. I don't want to hear a generosity message from a stingy person.
No. Uh, oh,
Wow. At our church, you can't take anybody anywhere that you haven't been yourself.
yeah, it's good. That's
You
good.
got,
That's good.
and that brings that authenticity. You know, like we also say something else. We don't we don't practice what we preach. We preach what we already practice,
Yeah.
right?
Y'all got, y'all got some
All
good
in,
fire, good rev.
yeah, no, it's all in the spirit of what you were saying, Pasatino, and that resonates so much. We so appreciate you. Thank you for having me, and
Yep.
spending time with me and continue to encourage us. We feel like we have the best people on the planet, just in our world, in our universe now, and we are so thankful.
Well, my wife and I, Dylan and I, we love you guys, and it's an honor to share you with some of my friends, and then
Yeah,
because again, I believe what you're about is going to help people. It's going to
thank you.
populate heaven. It's going to serve the church well, and so we're just excited. The few times we've got to spend together, I'm always encouraged, and I know you,
Mm,
Kim, are just you're brilliant people, but you're humble. And I like being in the room with smart people like you. I feel smart when I'm in the room with smart people. So anyway, man, I appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon.
I'll see you soon. Thank you, Pasadino. We'll see you.
Okay, baby. Come on, overflow.co. Remember that, not .com, .co.
Let's go. Love it.